You okay?
Yes.
Can you see the screen?
Yes,
Look
sir.
good.
Got it.
Yes.
Okay. Well, what we're going to do now is we're going to start, and I guess we'll start with Jerry. Just pick on Jerry. Jerry, could you read down to my? There's not a break, very good break anywhere, is there?
Yeah, there's one that the K, well, it's a comma,
Where?
but
Right
but
there. Go ahead. Go down to there. We got one right up here. That's a pretty short one too. Why don't we do it in three pieces? I'll let
Okay,
three of
that'll
you
work.
do it.
Where's the other one? You must.
Yeah.
Okay. Hos, Aeon, Peru, Omai, Ace, Tain, um, Spanyan, Elu, Somai, Peros, Humaus.
Okay.
And the first part of it, it's just whenever is usually what it's translated at, but I was trying to get the subjunctive idea in it. If when I might go to Spain, I will come unto you.
Okay. I will come unto you. So, see, aeon here, that word if, goes with the doesn't go with the indicative mood. And of course, you have a long connecting vowel here on it, right here. So that's a warning that it's not indicative mood. That would fit in with your subjunctive mood, okay? Long connecting vowel.
I think he had learned a long time ago to quit assuming he's going to get to go somewhere, and if the Lord's will, I'll do it.
Yeah. So if I'm on my way to Spain, if I take my journey, see, I'm taking a journey to Spain, into Spain, all right? And I will come what? I'll be coming what?
Unto you.
So I will come toward you, right? Any problems there?
No.
All right. Now we do have a textual variant. Notice on the bottom of your screen there, it's the variant is listed of manuscripts that have it. Majority text, which is most of the manuscripts. Remember, the textual critics, they consider the majority text, all those manuscripts, like one manuscript because they essentially read pretty much the same. And so they call it one manuscript. And of course, the other manuscripts that may read the same on some portions, they treat them as two separate manuscripts, okay? I don't think they're even honest in their approach to it. Not rational, at least. I don't think they're rational. But anyhow, these are the ones that have it. F-35, I'm convinced, is probably the correct text. It's a subset of the majority text. And all of the F-35 manuscripts are scattered throughout the world, and they all read the same. I think there's one or two textual variants in those 5 or 6, 7 manuscripts, 8 or 10 manuscripts. And all the rest of them, they're scattered throughout the world. They weren't all found in one spot. Okay. Any questions? I will come toward you, to you, pros.
What was the other text say?
Well, I don't know. I'm sorry.
Okay.
Okay, let's start here. And this is kind of jumping around a bit. We'll start right here, and we'll have Tony. Start right there, Tony. And if you would you come down to here?
All right. Oh,
Here to here.
okay.
All right?
Apiso, Gar, Dia, O, Ru, Oma, not Minos, Dia, Peru, Minos. The Ace, say, Die, say, They, Ace, Ace, Die. My, Hamas, hi, uh, oops, humon, pro, pim, pimpthini, echi.
Okay, okay. All right. So, yes, go ahead.
Um, I have, my hope for it is on my way through to see you, and by you to be helped there.
Okay. By you to be helped
On my way there.
see?
On my way there.
On the way there, see?
Yeah,
I
on my
put
way
to be
there.
furnished on my way there.
Okay, let's look at these words.
Too many words?
I hope to see you. Now, hope and wishing are different things. Keep that in mind. Hope entails a reason to expect something. And why would he expect them to help?
They've been helpful.
They had been helpful and they're doing good things. So he's hearing a bunch of good about them. But the word to see is it's a middle infinitive, interesting enough. And so to see for myself, see, to see you for myself. Paul wanted to see the brethren and to get to know them as I journey through. Now, notice this word journey, compound word here. Let's look at it. From where you see the cursor to the end of the word, poreuomai, that part right there is, from to the right of the cursor, is to journey. And then dia is through. So as I journey through, so I'm journeying through the region around Rome, which will be what we call Italy now. Right? Any question there?
Yeah.
While journeying through, this is a middle passive participle. Whether you take it to be middle or passive.
I put it as middle because he's been wanting to do it.
Yeah. I underline, notice on the screen it's underlined as middle. So I take it to be middle. While journeying through. Now, Robertson and Hahn both claim that it's middle voice. Robertson word picture and Hahn's book on where he conjugates all of the verbs, participles, and infinitives. Paul's journey through Rome lasted for 2 years, however. Okay. It's a 2-year journey. Right?
Well, typical of those times.
Yeah.
Especially if you're in jail.
Yeah, right.
And to be brought on my way. Now here, to be brought on my way is the word pimpo right there, but it has the word pro attached to it, the preposition pro. So to be sent through or toward or send beyond, to send before. So I hope to be brought on my way, and that's a passive infinitive there. So he's hoping they'll help him in his journey and provide him probably some assistance in his work. Okay. Now, why didn't he take assistance from the Greek-speaking churches, but he's taken assistance from the Roman churches? We talked about the difference in their attitude.
Cultural mores.
Yep. The Roman culture didn't have a problem with paying a teacher. Yeah, but the Greeks looked down upon a teacher that was paid. He ought to teach for the love of what he teaches. See, that was their
Today, is it?
yeah, that was their idea.
We had those same ideas amongst us, my brother.
Yeah. Okay. And the brother said the word by you. Now, hupo is ablative, and it's ablative of a direct agent. So it's common, notice here, with the direct agent, according to Robertson. So here we have a direct agent, and that's what it's talking about here. So he was thinking of them as being the agent that guided him or sent him on or aided him in his work of traveling through. All right? All right? If first, in some way, or in some measure. Now, the word in some measure is actually apo. What part of speech is apo, of course? It's an appetitive
We haven't
case.
read that part though.
Okay, we haven't read that?
Mm-mm.
Okay, yeah, let's go back and read it then.
Started day on.
Okay. I thought we started. Okay, let's go ahead here. Start here. And who all is in class? Is James, you're there? Can you read that for us to the end of the verse?
Yeah, yes, sir.
Please.
Aeon humon, proton apomerus, emplaisto.
Translate it for us now.
Yeah, well, the way I translated it, I said, if you first, I had trouble with this piece. If first I might be satisfied, and then that by you or with you.
Okay. If of you first, I might be satisfied in part.
Yeah,
See, humon is
it's not
the
good.
case.
I'm sorry, which word?
Humon. I'll highlight it.
Oh,
Humon.
that's a subjunctive aorist.
That is a genitive case, isn't it?
Oh, apo.
Yeah, right there,
Oh,
right there. Humon. So I highlighted it.
I'm not seeing anything but the text when you highlight for some reason.
Okay, I'm sorry. It's the first word on the third line.
Oh, proton first. So you want to know what,
Well,
The word before that, humon.
humon, plural genitive,
it's genitive plural, isn't it?
right, of
If
you.
you first, see, you first what?
From, and then of part, and then the next word means to might satisfy. Sometimes it's used as filling up, to fill.
Okay, it's from plemplemi, isn't it? In
Yes, it
plemplemi,
is.
plemplemi. So that's to fill up. So if you get full up, like if you get full of food, you're satisfied, aren't you? Hopefully, if it's good tasting food. Okay.
I put I
Yes.
might be filled because it's still subjunctive.
Yeah, it's subjunctive. Well, aeon takes the subjunctive, doesn't it? If it were indicative, it would be a. So this is aeon here. That will take the subjunctive right there. All right. It's a third class conditional sentence. If it's true, and it might or might not be. Say, first, in some measure, I shall be satisfied with your company. So if I do, I'm satisfied with your company. So I think he's leaving it open to how they're going to receive him. Well, I think the church received him with great welcome. If we study in Acts, we can see how they sent people down to meet him, you remember? So I think they did. Of course, what we had is a bunch of little congregations assembling in people's homes at that time. So, but I think the churches as a whole were receptive of him. All right. Paul could have commanded them as an apostle to aid him in the work, but he seems to want them to help out of their own free will or goodwill. People should be encouraged to do it out of their own free will and goodwill, and not out of duty. Now, I know it's a duty to give, but it's far better if we give because we want to. Okay. All right, any comments?
Well,
I'm not saying it's not a duty. I'm just saying it's far better if we give it out of love.
So Merouz is in part?
In measure, or measured part, or
Okay, I put it in the midst, and I thought it was referring to
You're
being in
thinking
the
of
midst
mes-
of them
you're
rather
thinking of
than,
mesos.
okay, so I got that wrong.
I put a full house,
Right?
a full house.
I think you're thinking of mesos. Put an S right here on that instead of an R, and I think you'll have your word. Mesos.
Okay,
But this is related. Pimplami is to fill. This is epimplani. So it's probably the word, the mu is probably from a nu. It's probably the word in, epsilon nu, pimplami. We'd have to study it out a little more. I'll be filled in with your company, filled in, filled with, full of, and I'll be what I want from you. I want your love. I want you to do this because you love God. And that's in the background, although it's not said explicitly. Right? Any comments? If we give grudgingly of necessity, it's not really good. It's not a good way to be giving. God loveth a what?
Sure.
Cheerful giver. And so, and it's not, shouldn't be out of grudgingly or of necessity. 2 Corinthians 9:5 helps us out, okay? Some claim Paul did not go to Spain because there's neither evidence from the New Testament or the evidence from extra biblical history that he went to Spain. Well, that doesn't prove anything, okay? The argument contains the logical fallacy of denying the antecedent, because the argument would be this: there's either evidence from the New Testament or evidence from extra biblical history that Paul went to Spain, then Paul went to Spain. Well, that's axiomatic, that's self-evident truth. That's clear, that's evident. But arguing that there's neither evidence from the New Testament nor evidence from the extra biblical history that Paul went to Spain. Well, what if you've done is you've denied the antecedent? Denying the antecedent doesn't prove anything, all right? If you deny the antecedent, that doesn't prove anything. And that's the fallacy, it's a logical fallacy. And so it doesn't prove anything. So you don't conclude he didn't go to Spain, you just say they don't have any evidence. That's all you can say. All invalid, improperly constructed arguments are unsound. They don't prove anything. Now, it may be true he didn't go to Spain, but we can't, just because we don't have evidence doesn't mean it didn't happen. Okay. Are there things that happen that we don't have evidence for it in the world? Okay, there's lots of things happen. We don't have any evidence to prove one way or the other what the deal was. When COVID was spread, it came from somewhere, didn't it? It got started somehow.
Yeah.
So we don't know how it got started. Somebody probably knows, but I don't know. All right? Questions? When I take my journey into Spain, I will come to you, for I hope to see you while journeying through, and to be brought on my way there by you. At first, I be in some measure filled with your condition. So he was wanting to be brought on his way to Spain. Now, as an apostle, let's think about it. As an apostle, he was doing what he knew the Lord wanted him to do. Well, had the Lord told him he needed to go to Spain, he was wanting to go there. Now, remember, he had not wanted to go where other people had laid foundations, but he was wanting to go to Spain. What does that tell you? That tells me no one had laid a foundation there yet, and he needed to go. Okay? But we went through that back in December. Any questions? That to me implies that he did go to Spain, or God wanted him to. All right? Now let's try verse 25. Jeff, are you just auditing?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we won't lean on you. Okay. Freddie, have you looked at this enough to translate it?
No. I
Can
can, I
Can you be
can,
ready, try to be ready next week, okay?
okay,
All
okay.
right. Okay. Chris, are you there? Chris Hill,
I'm here.
can you
I'm here.
verse 25,
Yes.
please, okay?
Okay. Nuni de por you, oh my, eis Jerusalem, diaconon tois agios.
Okay.
I have a nuni now in a day, but, so post positive, but now, or however now, I am going into or in Jerusalem ministering to the saints or the holy ones.
Okay, I believe that's good translation. But now I want you to see one thing about Nuni. It's derivative from noon. I'm going to highlight noon for you on the screen. And here's what happens. My study on it shows it's the same as noon, which is now, but the iota demonstrative that's attached to it means just now. So it's a little bit more emphatic than the word now. It's just like just now. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
And that's
Yes.
what I found several sources. Now at this present time, Thayer says, precisely now, neither before nor after. But noon is now, and this noonie is now at the very moment, at this moment. So it's a little more emphatic than noon. Now, are there comments or questions? Again, I go, it's not the normal word for go like erkomai or bino. It's paruomai, to journey through. So I'm making a journey into Jerusalem, or unto Jerusalem. Right? Now remember this, what you get into, and this is in our Greek, if a noun is indeclinable, and Jerusalem is indeclinable, here I'll highlight it, sometimes it will have an article, even though the grammar and syntax doesn't call for it. But the article will be there to tell you what case it is, an indeclinable noun. Indeclinable nouns generally, and well, they would always be a non-Greek word, is what they'd be. This Jerusalem is not a Greek word. It's a transliterated word. So it's a Hebrew word. Any questions or comments? We don't have an article here, but I would just point out that we have it. It's indeclinable, but it has to be, the structure, what it is, it'll have to be accusative case because the preposition ace or ice goes with it. It always takes the accusative case, what it's referring to. So it's functioning as the accusative case in this instance. And the word ministering is a participle, isn't it? Now, what two ways do participles operate? I keep forgetting that. I need you to help remind me. Anybody?
Verb or adjective.
Adjective or what?
Verb.
Adverb or adjective. That's correct. Now if it has an article, it's automatically what? You remember?
Automatically an adjective.
It's automatically an adjective. If it doesn't have an article, it still could be an adjective, but it won't have an article if it's adverbial. So I think it's adverbial in this case. It's ministering unto the saints, probably an adverbial participle, while ministering. Now, they will use the word in your Greek books as telek. I've highlighted it there. And that's a big fancy word for purpose, okay? And so it comes from transliterated Greek words, what it does, right? The Christians in the Roman province, that's who the saints are, and that's what Paul was writing about in verse 16, I believe. He was,
The saints are in Jerusalem.
yeah, Jerusalem. Roman province of Judea. I'm sorry, I didn't read all of what I had written up there.
Oh, okay.
It's in the Roman province of Judea. Okay. That's where it was. He was ministering to them, taking this contribution down to them. Okay. But now I go into Jerusalem ministering to the saints. Any questions? All right. I think Chris was last, is that correct? We'll come back to Jerry then, if we will. And Jerry, oh boy. Jerry, can you just take the whole verse,
Okay.
please?
Eudoke sound, gar, Makedonai, Kai, Achaia, Koinonion, Tina, Poies, Sosthai, Ace, Tus, Dokus, Ton, Agion, Ton, and Jerusalem.
Okay? Now, what is this? Of course, gar is what's one thing about it that's different in English? It's what?
Postpositive.
So it reaches over and begins the sentence. See, I'm
Mhm.
moving my cursor around, you can see it there. So it goes to the front of the sentence, see, for, and it's going to give you an explanation or ground or a reason. For it hath pleased them. So right here we have the you, which is good, a prefix meaning good. And so it's from dokeo, eudokeo, and it's a good pleasure, okay? It's a good pleasure to choose or decide. And so this active voice, so it was a voluntary contribution, see? It's been the good pleasure, active voice. They weren't passive in it being forced to do it. They were active. Now, it could have been middle voice, but they were active in this thing. They went after it and did it, okay? So these brethren, these Gentile brethren, were loving the Jewish brethren that had brought them the gospel. And they're trying to help them, okay? Any comments there? They're pleased to help them. All right? Macedonia and Achaia. Now, Macedonia, and what we have here is Achaia. There may be some of the manuscripts may say Asia. Let me check. All right. Achaia, it's Achaia in all of them, okay. I thought some of them may say Asia. Achaia is also a Roman province, and I think the chief city of that Roman province was Corinth, if my memory is correct. Okay. But Corinth is in that Roman province, okay? Right? Any questions there? All right. So Achaia is probably a metonymy where the provinces are mentioned, but it's the churches in the provinces, of course. You know, that to me makes perfectly good sense. He's mentioning the provinces, the brethren in these provinces. See, that's what he's basically saying. And their desire was to make, and of course the word make there, scroll on me. Notice it's middle infinitive. And again, this is the middle voice. They're busy and they're doing it themselves, see. It signifies that they have an interest in this matter. And it's a certain contribution now. The word certain is points out something special, right? So this is something that they set aside to do. And it's a contribution. Now it's called koinonia, and that's the word for fellowship. But what they're doing is, when they gave their money to help the brethren, were they not joining with them in fellowship? Okay.
Yes.
And that's, I believe, the contribution of 2 Corinthians 9:13. Does everyone agree there? Now, the contribution is called koinonia in Acts 2:42. And it's the same word. And that's why I take it to be a contribution in Acts 2:42 as well, because that's how it's used in several passages. So they jointly join together to help each other. All right. Now in Acts 2, we have a special situation because these people have traveled for the Passover feast. Now they obey the gospel, and they're probably there for Pentecost as well, probably stayed for both. And anyhow, they're at least there for Pentecost. And so they've traveled, they obey the gospel, and they want to learn and stay and learn. Well, that costs money. And you got to either find a job, and there might not be enough jobs around. There sure might not be jobs. The Jews were not wanting to hire Christians. I think they suffered from unemployment problems, okay, because of that. And they had their homes and their properties taken away, right? We don't see that in America one of these days.
It was a method to safeguard their domain.
Yeah. And so they were helping each other to help those people so that they could go back and teach. And so this was Jew helping Jews in Acts 2. And so now the ones that they had taught were so delighted at the salvation of their souls that they poured out the gift to those that had helped them. Turnabout's fair play, right? So they did. That's the way I look at it. Now I want you to look at the word translated poor here, and I'll highlight it. Look at that right there. How can you put a P and a T together and pronounce it without almost spitting?
Oops.
Really?
And so that's a poor person. Actually, that's a beggar. One who's crouched, and I mean, he's in trouble. Okay? And what we have here is that person there, that's the word for a beggar. So the church there was reduced to begging. And when we study the books of Hebrews and some of the other books, put pieces together, they had the spoiling of their goods. That is, their property was taken away. Because they were considered apostates to Judaism, they lost their lands and their homes and their jobs. That's pretty serious. I mean, that's where the rubber meets the road, and you decide, do you really have faith? Okay, that's a real toughie right there.
Wow.
Any questions? Nobody has questions, comments?
Yeah, I have one. How do you pronounce that one word, Brother Mary, that with the P and the T next to it?
You want me to pronounce it?
Yes, please.
Tokos.
Oh.
Tokos. You almost got to spit when you say it. Tokos.
Yes, sir. I see that.
I suspect there's some meaning in that. You almost like spitting on him. Okay.
I think that the word there definitely makes contextual the word poiesos to be a contribution.
Yeah.
I mean, contextually, it would contribution would fit there.
Okay. Among the saints. Now these people that are reduced to begging are Christians. They're saints. And they've been set aside by God. God is happy with them. They didn't give up their Christianity to get a job or to get some other pleasure. Okay? And that are in Jerusalem. Okay? And Jerusalem is probably mentioned, but he probably refers to the whole province. The earlier part, he mentions the province of Judea. Now, Jerusalem was the chief city of the province of Judea. Samaria was also part of that province, okay? As we study it more fully, all right?
If you get away from the Sanhedrin, though, you're probably safer and safer the further you get.
Yeah, the further you get from the Sanhedrin, the probably the better off you are, okay? Particularly as corrupt as they were at that time. Now, the Roman provinces that we know were involved in this contribution are Macedonia, Achaia, and according to 1 Corinthians 16, 1 and 2, the province of Galatia. So those are pretty big provinces. Now, then, if Galatia was involved, and Achaia and Macedonia were involved, the province of Asia was between them. I suspect it probably was involved too, but I can't prove it. Okay. Any questions or comments? The poor Jewish Christians. Now here are the passages, some of the passages on the bottom of the screen. Of course, you can have this. We will put this up on our internet site. You can view it and go back and see it. They suffered persecution, and we have these passages in James 2, James 5, Hebrews 10, and 1 Thessalonians 2:14, and other passages. And that this point's established later in verse 27. Okay, we'll show it some more. Okay. For it has pleased them of Macedonia and Achaia to make a certain contribution for the poor of the saints, and I put a dash of the saints in Jerusalem. Now let's go back why I did that way. So we'll come back and see it. So we see of the saints, notice it's genitive plural right here, and also I'll try to highlight those words, the poor of the saints. Then he repeats the article with nothing for it to modify out there, because it can't modify the singular Jerusalem because it's plural article. So what is it modifying? Well, it's modifying the word hagion again. So it's actually emphatic. The poor of the saints, the article is there and leaving you hanging. But it's a way of emphasizing it's the poor of the saints, the saints of Jerusalem. So the word saints, that's why when I translated it, I put a hyphen of the saints in Jerusalem, a dash, okay, in my translation. Any questions there? Because it's emphatic, and I wanted to emphasize it. Are there questions? 27. Who did it last? Jerry, did you do it last?
Yep.
Okay, Tony, could you, well, can you take it down to here, if you will, where the cursor is, okay?
Edocason, Gar, Kai, Ophiletai, Huton, Essen, Gar, Tois, Pneumaticois, Aton, Echo, Nason, Te, Ethna.
Very good. All right. R is, of course, post-positive, right?
Yeah.
For what?
This is a tough sentence to translate in English, but I have it. For they were pleased, and debtors, they are, if in the spiritual things, they participated, see where we go down to? Ethne. They participated, the Gentiles.
So the Gentiles participated, see?
Yeah, the Gentiles participated in the spiritual things.
Yeah. So the Gentiles participated in the spiritual things, and so what are they going to do?
Yeah.
I'm going to give you back the physical at least.
That's the rest of it, yeah.
So, yes, I think we can see this. Isn't that pretty good thinking?
Yeah.
You help save my soul. Well, I'll try to save your life and help you stay alive.
Yeah.
Okay. Any comments or questions there?
Of course, we didn't get to that last part, but that's what it says.
All right. Right here is to owe. That's a debt. Right. So we're debtors. For F. Now right here, we had aeon earlier. Now we have epsilon iota here. Now this aeon is an iffy F, and this is a more certain F. See? And so if they receive, we have four kinds of sentences, and the first class conditional sentence is if it's true, and it is, then such and such occurs. And that's with epsilon iota. And that's what this is, a first class conditional sentence. So he's assuming that they received, they participated or fellowshipped in the spiritual things with the Jews. Well, who was the first? What race of people were the first ones preaching the gospel?
Jews.
Jews.
In Antioch.
Who were all the
Syria sent them
apostles?
out.
What race were they? First preachers were all Jews. And they brought the gospel out to the world.
And Jesus was a Jew.
And Jesus was a Jew. Any questions? Okay. They're debtors, see, we're debtors to them. They are, that is, the Gentiles feel like they're debtors. Paul is saying the Gentiles are debtors to the Jews because the Jews brought the gospel to them. What greater debt can you have but that someone taught you the gospel? Okay? Well, Paul had pledged to help the poor in Galatians 2:10. Remember whenever Paul went down, actually he had already pledged this earlier too when he went down on one occasion. But in Galatians 2:10 he mentions that pledge. And he was to help the poor among the saints, see? And so you go out and preach the gospel to the Gentiles, you Paul, but don't forget the poor. And he's taking that to be the poor among the Christians. Maybe they had already started having trouble at that time. It's possible. But if they hadn't, they could be speaking by prophecy, knowing it's going to happen. The Holy Spirit would know it would happen. And he promised that he would help the poor. In Galatians 2:10, you go back and see it. Now, well, they had the Holy Spirit to give them information ahead of time, like Agabus and the drought and everything, or the famine or the dearth. And so we don't have that. Galatians 2:10, and only they would, that we should remember the poor was the very thing I was also zealous to do. I think it would definitely include the Jewish poor as well as Gentile poor. Okay? All right. Now, where did you get to? Down to ethne?
Ethne.
For ethne, and our word ethnic comes from the Gentiles. Gentiles have been partakers, see? And so I think it's a nominative case here. It's accusative or nominative form.
Okay.
Remember here that the neuter gender verb, nouns, will have nominative and accusative case plural will be the same form, and nominative and accusative case singular will be the same form. So I take it to be nominative. Anybody disagree with that? It has to be the subject of that finite verb following it, okay? Any question going on that? Have communion or fellowship with of their spiritual things. Mm-hmm. Right? Now we won't get into the ecos ending. If you'll get into my notes on this, you can find this ecos ending, and I can't. Let me see if I can highlight it here. That ending right there. That's something you could study, spiritual things. There's an ecos and there's an enos in two different endings. Okay. Salvation was through the Jews. That's what Jesus told the woman at the well in John 4:22. And of course, the apostles and the early church was all Jews. I think for 3.5 years. All right. Let's look now, and I'll put the cursor on, and we'll go to James, if you would. Can you read the rest of the sentence? Read the rest of the verse, please.
Yes, sir. Ophelusin kai entois psychikos liturgesai autois. I translated it with a couple of ellipticals there, but I said they owe them, and in the material things to minister to them.
Okay. Minister to them. In what? In what things?
In the material things.
You translated sarkikos kois as material. That would be correct. There's nothing wrong with that. Okay?
Yeah, sarx is flesh. So,
That would be material things.
yes.
Now, if you have Barry's New Testament interlinear, Greek New Testament interlinear, it has an appendix in the back which has synonyms. So got to remember that and go back and look at it. It even has the lexicon back there. But
Trent also has a very interesting study on that.
yeah. So what do you have on Trent? Trent's synonyms.
On the word flesh, fleshly and fleshen.
Yeah.
And different.
Yeah.
Words. It's an interesting study. I forget what pages, but it's in Trent.
Well, that's something to look at. I've got it in this file, lexicon and grammar notes file that I sent you, about 400 pages. It's in there if you can find it. I've got it already.
317, page 317, something
Yeah.
like that. In Trent.
Okay. But it's in that set of notes that I've sent. It's toward the back of it. Because the first part is lexicon, the first 2/3 of it is lexicon. Right?
That's worth time to look at it.
Yeah, I agree. But we're not going to go into that tonight, okay?
All right.
To minister, all right? And this is ministering like in a public service, and it began to be used like in a religious sense, okay? Originally it was public service, then it began to go into the temples and stuff, and it began to be used for religious and ritual services, okay? To them in what? Carnal things, or the things having to do with, how did you translate that, James, again? Tell us.
Material.
Material things. I like that.
In the material things.
May I steal it from you?
You bet.
All right. Dana and Manny quote this, and they have this passage. They say it means literally to have fellowship with you by means of your spiritual benefits. That's how they interpret it. All right. Association is not personal, but it's an association. Paul's making the point that Gentiles are debtors to the Jews because the Jews were stewards of the Old Testament scriptures, and they also, through Messiah, they obeyed him and brought the gospel to them. So there's 2 or 3 things that they had done that was a benefit to us. We should remember the Jews, and of course, we want all modern day Jews to obey the gospel, become Christians. All right? I think that Paul, by using letergeo, this verb, he's saying that the contribution became holy once it was made. This concords with my interpretation of Romans 15:16. Became holy. Okay. This thing. When something is dedicated to God, Exodus 30, verse 25, and other passages, it's holy. Once it's dedicated to God. Any questions or comments? Here's my translation. For it had been their good pleasure, and their debtors they are, for if the Gentiles might take their spiritual things, they owe it to them also to minister unto them in carnal things. I went ahead with carnal. But I may take your view there, James. I'll think about it. Okay. I learned from you fellows too, okay? Any questions? I think we maybe have time for one more verse. Let's try it, verse 28. All right, now, James read last, didn't he?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, would it be Chris? Would you be next? Trying to think, who was missing?
Yes, I'm ready.
Yeah, if you would. Verse 28.
Tutu un epiteleses kai sphregisamenos atois ton carpon tuton apilesomai dia umon ice tain spanine. All right, I translated that.
Spanion, see. Spain. Go ahead.
Spanion. Okay. Yeah. To this, therefore, having finished and having sealed to them the fruit, this I will set off through you into Spain.
See, he's going to Spain. He's planning on going to Spain. And that's where he's headed. He's headed to Spain, which tells me that that was part of his area to go to. And so, again, I would argue this. And the word un usually is a kind of a transition to another thought, okay? And so it's transitional right here, if you notice right here. I think I can write it better like this. So that's transitional, okay? And he already this almost certainly refers to bringing the contribution for the saints in Judea, that it was brought down, and then he had sealed it. What does a seal do with something?
Different things, but here I think means secure.
It could be secure. Could it be to certify to? Could be either. Seems either would be reasonable in the context, doesn't it? So he secured it and certified it and brought it down to them. So that's what a seal does, isn't it? To them. If you put a seal on a public document, it's certified. It's say someone is certified, a notary seal or something like that, and have sealed to them, that is to them this fruit. Well, the contribution is spoken of as a fruit. Well, if I am helping you, I might just bring you some fruit off my fruit trees and give them to you, that you can it or eat it or cook it or whatever you're going to do with it. Does that make sense? So it's styled as a fruit, something you've given to them. Paul seems to only intend to spend a brief time in Rome, the way he words this.
Jerusalem.
Oh, in Rome. But God had a different period in mind for him through his providence. Paul was wanting to get on into Spain.
That's true.
So he's got talk about journeying through. I'm going to journey through on my way through. But he spent going through. It took him 2 years to get through Rome. Okay, and I think God's providence. And of course, you say, well, he was in prison, but God allowed it to happen. God was in control. All right, I believe it with all my heart. Satan thought to imprison Paul, but God, through his providence, worked it for good. Okay? Am I making sense?
Some of Paul's statements.
You can't defeat God. You're not going to beat him.
Some of Paul's statements when he was in Jerusalem directly led to them being upset with him.
Yeah.
And they were told not to take count of what they're going to say when they're put on trial, because God would tell them. So apparently God told him to say something that would incite a riot. So.
Well, that's a good point. Everybody hear what Jerry said? Satan is not going to win. I guarantee it. As I go on, see. Now this is erchomai, and with apo in it, right there. It's erchomai, and op is from apo. Someone was going to say something. I'm sorry. Who was it? Okay. Well,
That was just me, Williams, just agreeing with Jerry's statement. It sounds right on point.
okay. Is that Freddie?
Yes.
So you disagreed with Jerry's statement?
Oh no, not at all.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not agreeing. I'm agreeing.
You agreed. Okay. I thought you said you disagreed. We were waiting. Okay. I'm sorry.
Now Marion's trying to incite to a riot here.
Jerry said I've been trying to incite a riot here. Okay.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But therefore I've accomplished this and have sealed to them this fruit. I will go on by you unto Spain. That's the literal translation.
I would put secured and sealed.
It's secured.
I got it in my pocket. It's right here in my billfold, and I'm bringing it to you.
Yep. Well, secured might be a good rendering too. I don't see anything wrong with it. We learned that Spain was part of Paul's assigned region, his assignment to lay a foundation. I mean, lay out in my argument. If Paul did not want to build on another's foundation and he wanted to go to Spain, then Spain was not a region for another's foundation, not assigned to another apostle. Therefore, Paul did not want to build on another foundation and he wanted to go to Spain. I conclude that Spain was not a region for another's foundation, not assigned to another apostle. It had to be assigned to Paul. And if that's true, and if my theory is right, that God aided the apostles and saw that they were able to fulfill their work before they died, then Paul did go to Spain, even though we have no evidence of explicit evidence of it. Are there questions? All right, what we'll do next week, the Lord willing, we'll start with Romans 15:29. Any questions before we close off? All right.
Thank you, Brother Mary. That was good. Ready. God, see you next week.